Hello. So I wanted to record something about getting distracted and how this is something that it's part of our everyday, right? How to not get distracted. And actually, you might have just come on to, this platform and got distracted by me, right? It's so easy to get off track. But this is not about focused attention, your list of tasks to do during the day. I don't mean in that sense. I mean in general. This is all about coming back to yourself, like sort of a path to self-inquiry where you might go on a journey and then realize that you've been off track for a long time. And I felt it's important for me to talk about this as a therapist and a coach because, first of all, when someone seeks a therapist in terms of wanting to get some help in their life, there's something that's really important for you to realize. And that is that you are very vulnerable when this happens. You typically search for a therapist when life isn't going the way that you want it to go. And vulnerability is all about, sort of exposing all your wounds, right? But I don't think a lot of people realize that when they're on the search for something better, something where they feel more joy in their lives, we're all coming from a place that we feel wounded. Because if we weren't on that search, we would already be, in peace and harmony and happy and joyful. But as soon as we start seeking something and we're on this path, that means we are becoming vulnerable in that. And it's so tricky. So I noticed it in myself, okay? So I would say in the last couple of years, like sort of unbeknownst to me, I started searching. I think I sort of know where it begins, but you know what? So I'm 55, and I think it's really common, for someone in this age range. Well, I know it is because that's the majority of my clients, that they realize something is sort of not right, something's missing. Maybe it's just sort of like lower mood, but they don't know what that mood is. It's just sort of like I feel off. And it's kind of interesting because okay, let me stay on track. Okay, so as I said, I believe it's sort of happened to me about 2 years ago. And when I look back, this is a time where it was very exciting to me. Like I had just sort of embarked in the world of functional medicine. And even with the certification, I still had this need to know more. So again, this is need for knowledge. And you know what? This is me. I'm not going to apologize for it. This is the way I've always been. I always have this need to know more, and I love it. Like I crave knowledge. So I hired a mentor in functional medicine. I feel like I got all the schooling in place, but now I need to sort of make myself feel a little bit more stable by having a mentor, and that's great. And so okay, that was the first part. And then it became more okay, now I need sort of a business mentor. Like I was getting the mentor in functional medicine, but now I need more of a business mentor because my whole sort of system changed. It's sort of, okay, this is, I need these things now in place in my business model, and the whole business changed for me. And then, again, I didn't even know that I was sort of like searching for this, but I somehow like was on Facebook and somehow clicked on a post that was a business coach, and then I hired her and I worked with her for at least 6 months or if not more. And I say somehow on Facebook because honestly before this I was not a Facebook person, not at all, like barely had a profile on there. And Instagram, couldn't tell you how to even use it, and here I am on a live now. So I mean, she sort of spoke to me about how I would, benefit from following this sort of business model or this way of running my business. So it all sounds great, and it was good. Like, I mean, it really opened my world. I had to start becoming very uncomfortable and putting my face to a camera, for example, like I'm doing right now, and grow my audience, right? Because that's what I wanted. I wanted my word to be spread out more. And, anybody who feels like they have knowledge to share is going to want to do that. That makes sense. And I didn't know how to do that. I wanted to expand outside of my home city here, Winnipeg, and I wanted to expand it to the masses, right? Across continents, across countries. Okay. And then after that, like I continued to hire coaches and mentors, etc. So in all of that, like I started talking today and I talked about distraction. So when we think about getting off the path, like I was on a track and I kind of got off the track. And again, it was for a good reason. I was searching for knowledge, and that's important. So going down this track made sense because there was something more out there I was searching for. But now looking back, I see that like hiring a coach, hiring a mentor, and they're all great. So I hired a business coach, I hired a coach, a mentor for functional medicine, and I hired other various coaches and mentors more for emotional intelligence. But what happens when you get a lot of knowledge coming in from various different people who have all different perspectives? You get lost. So I'm coming back to myself now because we have to realize that everyone out there has a different perspective on what they feel is right and what they feel is wrong, what they feel like you should do, what you feel like you shouldn't do. And I'll remind you again, you're coming from a vulnerable place, right? It's because like you're seeking knowledge. So what the person would tell you then is, this is, or I'm not going to even say they told me to necessarily do it in a certain way. It's more like you see the way they're doing it and you think, well, if they're achieving success in this way, therefore I must achieve success in this way. And that's where you have to start really seeing the link between vulnerability having some sort of core wound. And we all have that. Okay, just so you know, like, it doesn't have to be some big trauma. Like, for me, I know it's this kind of need to belong. I need to belong, whatever that is. And for some people, it's worthiness. I need to feel like I'm worthy. Other people I need to feel loved. I have to know that I'm loved, but I'm not saying there's only 3 core wounds. There's many others, but I just know in this whole journey, that's what it was for me. And it's hard sometimes to use discretion when you're feeling vulnerable. And like I said, this is tricky because half the people out there don't even realize that they are coming from a very vulnerable place. They don't even realize that they have this core wound. So it's super easy to see other people as being much more successful than you and feeling like they have all the answers, and therefore you have to go on that track. And in all that I've done in the last couple of years, I've seen that I've gone off my own track way too often. And I'm now coming back to myself. Like, who is Luella, and how does Luella want to show up in life? How does Luella want to run her business? How does Luella want to see herself as, and accept that's who I am? Because there's a lot of suggestions out there, and at the end you have to ask yourself, what do I feel comfortable with? What do I really want to do? And because that's always the right answer. So, and again, I'm not saying I was coerced into these, I'm somebody who takes full responsibility for my actions, and I encourage you to do the same. That's being like owning up for it. Like, we all have the ability to choose, and we have to remind ourselves of that. Blame is not an option here, nor is shame. Like, we've all made certain choices in life. We don't like all the choices we've made. And, I think it's really important for me to come on as being primarily a therapist and also a coach, but primarily a therapist, and tell you that if I've experienced this with all my knowledge, about vulnerability and losing one's sense of self, and how peace and joy is always coming back to sense of self, then anybody can experience this, right? We can't lose focus on that. We have to realize the importance of all of our happiness, all of our peace, all of our joy is with us all the time. It's right here. We don't have to search for it. It's right in front of us. And, it's called awareness. It's being aware of self. This is who I am. This love of yourself, and not using, some sort of dual meaning to that. Like, this is right, this is wrong. No, it's sort of like, this is who I am. There's no right or wrong. It's when you start believing that you're doing it wrong and there's another right way of doing it. Because everybody has a certain perspective. everybody has a certain lens from the way they see the world. And from their point of view, their perception, it makes total sense to behave like this. This is the way I do it. It makes complete sense. But from your perspective, it makes certain sense to do it a certain way. So like, you have to trust that, like, it makes sense to you, and so stay with that because it makes complete sense to you. Now, I'll bring it back to, talking about me and my search for knowledge. I mean, again, I'm not going to apologize for that. I love that part about me. And there's some real benefit to that. But again, this is where it becomes tricky. You have to seek the knowledge. You have to take that knowledge, not for what it is, but then come back to you and say, is this applicable to me? Does this work for me? Because again, there's no one like me out there. I am, it's sort of like, okay, let me just look at my notes here because there's something I want to talk about. Okay, the problem is with knowledge is that it comes as absolutes. Like, I mean, it's either, it's this or that, either or. It's sort of all or nothing, right or wrong. That's the problem with knowledge. And how this becomes a little bit kind of convoluted a little bit is that peace, joy, fulfillment, contentment, there's no absolutes. There's no right or wrong. There's no right way of doing thing, and there's no absolutely wrong way of doing things. That's sort of like, that's very finite, right? It's sort of like, it's one way of doing it, and we can't look at ourselves or the world like that. We have to realize that it's the opposite of finite. It's infinite. It's sort of like we all share this awareness, this human experience, and we have to come back to that. It's sort of like it's this one constant that we have all around us all the time. We have to accept others for who they are, for their behavior, and not say that, this is right, this is wrong. But that's what we start doing to ourselves, right? That's that narrative, those mind games we have with ourselves is sort of like, oh, they seem very successful or whatever, and therefore I'm going to follow that way of doing it, rather than realizing it makes sense for them because that's who they are. But does that really make sense for me because this is who I am? But we're all sharing that same experience. We all have that same awareness going on. We're all humans, and that's why we share this. And once you come back to that, you go back to a very loving, happy place in your life. And you stay in your own lane, you stay in your own tract. And that's what I'm realizing, that, that's definitely somebody that I realize that and that's where social media becomes so, it's sort of like, it can become so dangerous, because as soon as you get on social media, like, you do so many comparisons. It's like all these shiny objects out there, and it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how am I supposed to look? What am I supposed to wear? And we go down this very, like, dangerous path, rather than staying in your own lane and just doing what works for you. I think the best example of this is with, in the nutrition world, in the food world. And that's why I always sort of come back to it, because everybody's, on this mission to become healthy, and that's great. Like, that's why I studied the body as much as I studied the mind. It's all one. But it can be so easy to look at the way someone is eating or some particular type of diet and see their success and then say, oh my gosh, well, that's what I need to be doing then. I need to be carnivore. I need to be keto. I need to be vegan, whatever. It's sort of like it's working for them and therefore it must be the right thing. Rather than taking knowledge about nutrition, and there's a lot of, nutrition is science-based. There's a lot of great knowledge out there. And I am a seeker of that knowledge, believe me. I love science. I love it. But then take that information and bring it back to yourself and get back to that sense of self and read your body, not just the scale, but read your body and kind of go, this food felt good for me, or this food does not feel good to me. Another thing you hear so much now is just like all this protein and protein and protein. And it's like, but does all this protein feel good for you in your body? I mean, we're all like different. We're so different. And that's my point, is sort of like what works for someone is not going to work for the other person, whether it's a business model, whether it's, a certain diet, whether it's a certain exercise. Like, you be you. I always come back to that, because it's so easy for a coach or a mentor and I really try my best as a therapist not to tell people what to do, but to listen much more. Like, listen, be actively listening to them so that I can sort of, bring the question back to them and ask them, like, what feels right for you though? Not like I should do this because of some extreme guilt or shame. I mean, that never works. No one thrives on guilt and shame. It's like, it's all about self-love. What feels good to you? And stop apologizing for being who you are. So yeah, I really like the analogy of food, because it just makes so much sense to me. Like, there are fruitarians out there. All they eat is fruit. You go. Like, who am I to say that's wrong for you if your body is thriving on that? And you know what? Maybe your body thrives on that for 10 years and then you realize, this is not working for me anymore. You shift. That's fine. Just like myself. Like, I see how I might have listened to other people a little bit too much and sort of got out of who I am. And yeah, it's, I could shame myself. I could, apologize for making mistakes, but the only thing I'm going to apologize for is that if I confused anybody out there. Like, if people were sort of watching me and kind of going, this doesn't really seem like Luella, then I apologize for that, because I'm still here, and I'll be completely honest with you. Like, I will probably not be on, I don't know for sure. I really I love my podcast. I think I can. And I love having intimate conversations with people. That's why I'm a therapist. I also really like YouTube. I don't know. I feel like I use YouTube well. If I go into YouTube and I'm interested in a certain topic, then I'm going to search YouTube and I'm going to find it, and I do like video a lot. I do like audio and I do like video. Whereas Instagram, I feel like, I don't know, you get on it, here I am. Oh my God, maybe my video will be deleted. But no, it's all about distraction. It's sort of like you go on there for a certain reason, and then all of a sudden, like, all these other videos are being shown to you, right? It's sort of like, oh, and then you get back to the task at hand. I find it's just such an easy place to get distracted. And Facebook as well. I mean, but I'm not saying, like, there's a lot of great things about both of those platforms as well. I think a lot of people find some great benefits from both of those platforms, but I don't know if it's for me. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's for me. So I'm going to figure that out a little bit more over the course of the next, months or so. But yeah, I think we just need to be very cautious about being distracted in our lives, because as somebody that also works with a lot of couples, like, it's a big deal. I think the amount of time that people are spending on their phones, and again, it could be YouTube, it could be Instagram, it could be Facebook, it could be LinkedIn. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just, we have to put boundaries and stay in our lanes and have more time for that essence of just being who we are and coming back to ourselves and being in silence, and because otherwise, if we're in our heads, and I mean with too many thoughts, then we're not in the moment either, right? It's sort of like, I love the word mindful, because mindful is being aware. It's the same thing as being aware. I would use those two words interchangeably: mindfulness, awareness, coming back to self. And because when we're mindful, we realize, we're much more in our bodies, and we're feeling our bodies rather than in our heads with all these stories and narratives and shoulds and wondering why we're not where other people are, or whatever that is. So I am going to be much more intentional in terms of how I'm showing up, and let me think if there's anything else that I missed. And I just, I don't want to apologize again for this knowledge seeking, because this knowledge seeking, I'm a real optimist as well. I am very optimistic in terms of there's other ways of doing things, and I always feel it's going to work out. I don't worry about, there's no such things as a mistake. There's just no such things as a mistake. It's only looking back and realizing, I like the way that looked, and therefore I'm going to do more of that. But also there's times where you look back and you go, I don't like that. That I went off track. That is no longer me. I'm not, who am I? This is not me. Why am I doing that? And so, for me, it's a fine line between reaching people, but also, doing it my way, doing it very organically, and, and just allowing it to happen the way that I want it to happen. So let me just finish off by saying that I'm created like an 8-module little course, and I'm calling it Oh Please Do Tell. And TEL is TEL, and it stands for the European Lifestyle. Now, if you're following me at all, you probably know that there's many different things I love about Europe. And I just actually interviewed my photographer that I had when I was in Italy last April, because I just wanted to get her perspective about living in Southern Europe. So it maybe, I think there's obviously it's a huge continent, and I'm not going to say that, everyone in Europe is healthy and happy and joyful and mindful and aware and stuff like that. But there are certain, like especially in Southern Europe, I feel like, the Mediterranean area, that people are not so, and I've spoken about this before, so I apologize if I'm saying, they're not so work driven. It's just sort of like they also carve a lot of time out for their mindfulness and taking care of themselves. And it's not so money driven. It's not so work driven. It's not better, bigger, faster, stronger, again, like it's, and they will buy higher quality food because it's important. They will choose better foods because of how they feel. It's not just like, let me stuff something down really quick so I can get back to work. And anyway, it's, I like talking about it because I feel like it's, to me, it feels good. And maybe it's because of my European heritage. I don't know. But I do feel it's an easy mindset to sort of adapt to. And it just, it's sort of like, it's a bit of, springboarding into creating a different mindset. One that is much more, back to what makes me feel good. What makes me feel good? Am I doing this because I feel I need to do this? Or am I doing this because it feels good to me? So yeah, it's going to start next Saturday. And actually, yeah, today's January 13th. It's starting January 20th, and it's going to run for 8 days. So it's going to end January 29th. And it's the last module is going to be a Q&A. So you can join now. It's on my website, luellayoung.com. It's under group services, and it's at a very reasonable price because I want people to jump in. And I love teaching, but you can jump in now at a discounted price and participate live. But later it will just be, an evergreen program that you can watch at your own discretion, time, whatever. So that's there now. And please check out my website because I have also changed things in terms of having better access to me, easier access to me, whether that's online or whether that's in person. Prices are extremely reasonable, I would say, very comparative to anybody else out there. And yeah, I would encourage you to check it out. there's many other different little programs there too that, if you're more interested in the nutritional part and functional medicine, there's something like that out there. There's little other ways of working on your self-awareness. I have different programs for that. If you're somebody that, I didn't speak about this, but if you're somebody that's also in a lot of pain right now, like if you're suffering right now, and if you sort of need a very quick way of getting out of it, then I also have this 2-day intensive, I call, but I mean, it's 12, more or less 12 hours of working with me over a short period of time. It doesn't need to be 2 days. I know that, some people's work schedule and stuff like that, but, I wouldn't want it to be more than, let's say, 6 days of, like 2 hours a day back to back or something like that. I think that would even give you enough momentum to really change your whole mindset, like sort of a mindset makeover in that time. And I wanted to put that out there because I realize that if you have a very narrow perspective right now in terms of, I don't know, just feeling very scared, lost, doubtful, hopeless, that I want to expand your awareness quickly. I want to open up your perception. And when I say open up, when you open up something, you get more light come in, right? So someone who's really struggling now and has a very narrow perspective, or what, somebody might say closed-minded or pessimistic about life in general, then we want to broaden that and allow more light to come in so that your world opens up to new possibilities, like a whole new frontier out there. And once that happens, like once you sort of crack yourself open and able to see life in a different way, then you sort of get that jump start in life, and it's sort of like, it's easier after that. To me, I equate it with like, okay, I'm having I have pain right now, or like my head's pounding, this migraine or this headache. I mean, in functional medicine, we always go to the root cause. So I could come to you and say, well, I see that you're having a lot of problems with your gut right now. Like, your chances are you're doing this or that, or, you got a lot of inflammation in your body. And I might say that, we need to work on this, and it's going to take time. It's going to take a month. It's going to take 2 months. It's going to take 6 months. And then all of a sudden, like, okay, that in itself seems kind of hopeless. But so in that sense, like, all you can think about is the pounding headache. And so this 2-day intensive, 12 hours in a short amount of time, is more like the Advil. Just give me the Advil, give me the ibuprofen, just like, I just need to take this pain away now. And then, and then we get on track. But I just realized some people need that, right? So yeah, there's lots out there. There's lots of choices. If you check out my website, and yeah, I think you'll find something there. And if you don't, hey, I'm open to customizing things too. Tell me what you want. But there's a world of possibilities out there. And once you broaden your perspective and become more mindful and self-aware, your whole world will open up. And yeah, so I hope that helps. And take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.